Because there's always 5 answers.
Okay, hi. Say hi back, please. Hi. Some people say hi back. So I'm Peter Gormanley, and I guess I'm the other half of the pipeline program. The program is, how do I say this? We're seeing the LSAT in a fundamentally different way. We want to use the LSAT not as something you get around, not as something that you're looking for tricks or short, and just, it doesn't really matter, but I graduated from Pace Law School in 1986. I've been an assistant district attorney, so I retired from the DA's office after 11 years. I will say this, the Pace Law School experience, look, I'm just a kid from the Bronx. Well, no, what should we, I mean, as good as any, I guess, but one thing is, for me, right, so everybody has a different path. For me, this changed my life. So again, it's not about me, but I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with 7 people in it, and everybody was, my parents were immigrants. And from that, I've done what I'm supposed to do. I mean, still great shakes, but as a criminal attorney, I, argued homicides in the appellate division. I've tried attempted murders. I mean, I've done what I'm supposed to do. And when law's on your heart, that's what's possible. Now, it's got to be on your heart, right? So there's no BS. It's got to be on your heart. But man, it is really rewarding to look back. I'm 64. It is really rewarding to look back and say, that was a pretty cool ride. And it still is. It still is. So if you're going to do this thing, right, do it so that you can look back, method act, right, that at some point you're going to be 64. That beats the alternative, I'm told. Right? Yeah. You want to look back and say, well, is that really, am I doing what I'm supposed to do, or am I doing what I think God designed me to do? However you want to approach it. For me, Pace opened the door for that. So I met my wife at Pace. We got married at Pace. We got married up in down 1 floor down from the admissions office. It's true.
Wow.
Yeah, because so what I'm saying is law school, right? It wasn't college for me. It wasn't high school for me. It was transcendental, right? So for most people, it's just miserable, right? For me, I married my wife, who also was an attorney. So what we're trying to do in Pipeline is prepare you for law school before you get into law school. Just imagine you come into law school and you're more prepared for what's going to happen here. And that the LSAT can serve as a vehicle for that. And I promise you, the LSAT can serve as a vehicle for that. It's a really, nobody gets it. It's a really interesting test. So the way you do that, the way you weave law school, I mean, does it make sense that if there were a way to make for a soft landing when you become a 1L, would that make sense? Talk to me.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then what I'm trying to do is just describe how I think it makes sense. And then, look, being a lawyer, it's all about inviting questions. I'm just Peter. I mean, I'm not a dumb man. But I don't want to mess you up. I don't want to be, I want this to make sense to you. Okay. Because we've designed it for that. And in law school, no matter where you go, you're going to learn. There's a method. You're trained in law school. They can change the letters, but the way we learn to learn is IRAC. Anybody hear of IRAC?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, IRAC stands for Issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. Every legal issue you will face in law school, every legal case you will handle as an attorney will be governed by your understanding of IRAC, your application of IRAC. It is, what we try to do is reason. You with me? This is not about polemics. I don't get in front of a jury and try to prevail with polemics. I don't get in front of a jury and say to my client, relax, I have tricks and shortcuts. And no one I'm in court with is relying on tricks and shortcuts. It's anathema to what we do. We prepare. And again, if you don't have that gene, don't do this thing. But if you have that gene, or you can acquire that gene, right? You're simply outworking people. You're simply outthinking people. You simply are more passionate. Now that doesn't mean you need to be an extrovert, but you simply become more passionate. You know, it's easy to be more passionate than somebody who's disengaged. They're disengaged. So what we've done is say, well, what if we introduce you to IRAC before you go into law school, right? Where and again, I don't want to exaggerate, but pedagogically, it is the process used in almost every law school in the country. That is how you will learn to learn. Does it make sense? Well, let me say this to you. The purpose of the LSAT is to measure how you think, not what you know. So I want you to think about that for a second. You with me? Its purpose is to measure what you think and not what you know. Do you get what? We could care less what you know. Talk to me. Do we care if you're a music major, a geology major, or a political science major? Do you think the LSAT cares about any of that?
No.
No. We don't. Again, when you come in here, right? And some poor devil's going to raise their hand during the first week, and that poor devil's going to say, I think. And whoever's in front of the room is going to look at that poor devil and say, Mr. Smith. Nobody cares what you think. Right? It's what does the law say? I don't give, forgive, I mean, I got to be who I am. Right? I don't give a rat's ass, right, about what you think. What I care about is what does that law say? And if I were to hire anybody and they would tell me what they think of the law, they could tell somebody else because they wouldn't be in the office. I don't care what you think of the law. What does the law say? What is the issue we are presented with? Not what issue would you like to be presented with? Not how would you like to paraphrase the issue? No. So none of this, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this. But you've got to be able to say, well, wait a minute, there's a specific issue to solve here. I'm not reading the law out of curiosity. I'm reading the law to resolve an issue. Well, that affects how I read the law. But the first thing I have to do is read textually. So this is what's going to happen in your first year of law school. This is what you're going to hear, right? And you say, oh, crap, nobody said that before. Well, now I've said it, and you've heard it, right? And it's so dopey, right? Because you say, okay, why am I reading this? I'm not, in my practice, on how many occasions do you think I've been asked to explain Milton Friedman's theory on macroeconomics? How many times do you think I've been asked to explain that in practice of law? Look, give me a zero. And on how many occasions have I been asked, do you think I've been asked to explain the psychology of Sigmund Freud?
No.
How about the philosophy of Ayn Rand? maybe once, maybe somebody who, you know, yes. What I'm saying to you is it's not your academic background. That's not why I'm in court. I'm not in court to explain any of that. That's not part of this profession. It's a business, it's a profession. And this is the coin of the realm. Well, what if this coin of the realm solved on the LSAT? And it does. Every single question on the LSAT is solved by IRAC. And if you do it, you know how cool this gets? I can still hear Dave. Dave prepared it Dave was at a different school. But as Dave prepared for the LSAT, he came up and he said, you know, at one point he said, holy crap. He said, it's just like you're looking at the answers and you're just cherry picking what your mind produced. And that is correct. When you do this correctly, you will form the answer in your mind. Certainly in the logical reasoning section and in the reading comprehension section, you'll actually form the answer in your mind before you ever look at an answer choice. Then you look at the answer choice and say, well, yeah, that's what I just thought. Because the writer is writing this way. So, has anybody heard of the word psychometric? Okay, well, yes, well, yeah, Rachel. Right. That's cheating. But wait a minute. So some of you plan to take the LSAT, yes? Or you have taken the LSAT, right? And yet, those of you who plan to or have taken the LSAT have not heard the word psychometric. Is that correct? Talk to me. It's just Peter. Well, what if the LSAT were a psychometric test and you had never heard the word psychometric? I mean, it kind of reminds me of going to a driving school, right? And learning how to drive on an automatic, right? And then purchasing a stick shift. What was the point of that? So you're preparing for a test, right? And hopefully some of you, not to endorse any particular business, but I encourage you to go Google or whatever you do, right? Google psychometric, right? Do you get when you apply to law school, we have your GPA? Talk to me. It takes you generally 4 years to get your GPA. We have your GPA, yes? Yes. Don't you think that tells us what we need to know about your academic abilities?
Yeah.
No.
Well, is it a good start? Is it a 4-year investment to give us, is it data?
Yeah.
It's data.
I come from a design school, so I don't have a GPA.
Okay. As a general principle. So sure, of course there are exceptions. And that's different from, again, it's just, my GPA, like it was a million years ago, right? But my GPA was 2.68. You with me? That's with a 2, right? Okay? So I assure you, I'm not supporting the principle that the GPA itself is compelling evidence of an outcome, right? That's because when I went to college, I didn't understand that you weren't supposed to be drinking during the day. I mean, who knew? I know, and then you had to show off the classes. What's with that? So, the LSAT's a psychometric test, and the reason for it is we don't need additional academic. If you want to give us additional academic information, can you go get a master's degree?
Yes.
Yeah, you can continue your education and give us additional information, yes? So the LSAT has nothing to do with academics. Nothing. It's psychometric. The psychometric basically is measuring the psychology of the test taker. Psychometric test is something you would take or you will have taken in your own life if you're applying for a job in a certain occupation. When I took a CIA exam a million years ago, and you take a psychometric test for that, are you willing to jump out of an airplane without a parachute? Sure, no problem. How high up is the plane? Is it on the floor? Yeah, I'll do it. Psychometrics, and if you have any doubt about this, good, again, if you go to the LSAC website and you check for their job openings, you're going to find they have job openings for psychometricians. Now, if you were hiring a psychometrician, what kind of test would you be giving? Psychometric test. But if it's got nothing to do with academics, and it doesn't, right? Then the way you prepare in college is not going to serve you well for this test at all. So that's where we're coming from. One, the test is fundamentally, for whatever reasons, misrepresented or misunderstood or both. It is what it is, right? The test measures how you think, and the LSAC publishes that information. Well, let me ask you this. If it measures how you think, do you get that some people are not lawyers, should not be lawyers, and cannot be lawyers? Talk to me. Yeah, not everybody's supposed to be a lawyer. Do you guys get that? And you can't succeed without risking failure. Oh, okay. I mean, I don't recall anybody saying to me, well, Peter, take this case because you'll win. Yeah. Okay. So, when you come in your first year of law school, you're going to be essentially have to take legal analysis. You're going to have to take a legal writing class, and you're going to find out two things you now have to do. You now have to read like a lawyer, and you now have to write like a lawyer. You with me? If you're going to be a journalist, would it be fair to say you have to learn how to write like a journalist?
Yeah.
Okay, but you're not being a journalist, right? If you're an engineer, you're going to have to learn to write like an engineer. Well, insofar that engineers write well. If you read more the way a lawyer is taught to read, and you write more the way a lawyer is taught to write, might you think more the way a lawyer is taught to think? Talk to me. Oh, so where are the tricks and tricks? Because the test, do you think the way a lawyer thinks, right? So if you need to think the way I've been taught to think, and it's no big deal, you change the way you read, you change the way you write, and you change the way you think. And that's what this is about. So that's what the program is. We've had this program, pipeline program at Pace, we've been here, I think about 6 years. The program, again, the goal is to strengthen your application. The goal in this, right, is you'll take an LSAT program with me. What I'm doing is basically helping you learn how to read in this different way. And the word is textually. You have to learn how to read the law. The law is written in a very specific way with a very specific intent and very often by lawyers. You have to read. If you read with less insight, if you read with less specificity than the writer has written with, do you get you're in trouble? Yes? Well, that's what this is. So, the way it works, yes.
My question is on timing. Like, how long does the course take in relation to the last LSAT if you want to apply? You know, I don't understand if you're applying for fall. I guess the timing.
Okay, I just happen to have a sheet here. So the first thing is, the program is cross-recognized, meaning Albany Law School, Toro Law School, if you want to go down to Florida Coastal Law School, and Pace Law School all participate in the program. So meaning that the scholarship award, it'll vary, the nuts and bolts vary a little bit from school to school, but there are several schools vested in this concept, right? And the concept is stop the BS, stop the tricks, stop the shortcuts. You want to do this for a living, let's start doing it. Right. My part of it is 60 hours. So with me, this cycle, because the nature of this test is 50 hours. But my piece of it is the LSAT and applying IRAC to the LSAT. And the way for me to get that to you is for you to come in as my guest and sit in on a class. You're going to be here as my guest, and then you'll speak. Because this is in a form that's not adequate for me to be going into exactly how we approach this. But first thing is, the program is offered at Pace Law School. The upcoming schedules will be the first session, Saturday, November 7th. If you're thinking about preparing for an LSAT in advance of March, so whether it's the January LSAT or it's the March LSAT, one of those two, right? Then this, you would begin in November. Okay. On November 17th, that's 2 weeks from today, in room 201, which is right next door, we'll have the first class in preparation for whatever the next test is. But whether that's January, whether it's March, the last thing I want you to do is rush. All right. So everyone here is welcome to be here as my guest. And in that packet there should, there is a form, because you should have in that packet the information about pipeline and the form to fill out there. The purpose of the form is if you fill that out and you leave it with me, then I'll get back to you by email and say, let's set up a date you can come in and visit. If you can't visit on November 17th, come visit on November 24th. If you can't do that, come November 31st. Come when it's convenient for you, and come here and understand you're here as our guest, right? To see if this is a fit. So that's how you're with me for 50 or 60 hours, depending on the cycle, and then you're with Anthony for 12 hours. So what Anthony's doing in the 12 hours is preparing you for that first year legal writing class. You will have to take first year legal writing, no matter where you go. And that essentially is, they're measuring, can you write the way we're taught to write? And so that Anthony's piece can be done live, which will be probably on evenings. It can be done streaming, and it can be done online. So Anthony's piece is, it's easy to fit that into the fabric of what we're doing. The second cycle, so we have one cycle that's November 17th. The second cycle is March 16th. Now, the March 16th cycle, that's if you're thinking about a June exam, right? You can start early, right? But if you want to do the March 16th, do that. But the first step would be to come and visit as my guest. In terms of the nuts and bolts of this program, everyone's eligible, right? So as you sit here now, as long as you want to go to law school, you're eligible. You need just to complete the programs. You need to complete the Focus Approach LSAT program, and you need to complete Anthony's piece, right? All that means is...
Before you apply?
Well, no, you can apply at any time. No, yeah.
That's my timing issue. Can you apply for the program, and then...
Yeah. They're not connected.
Does the pipeline hold you back your application?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Does it help your application?
Well, you know, when the school knows that you've taken basically a 70-hour program, and when you're working with folks who are at the school and they come to know you, I'm kind of thinking that bolsters an application. Just saying. So those are the two pieces, right? I'll demonstrate very briefly what I'm trying to do. And the benefit is that when you apply, if PACE accepts you, you apply, if PACE accepts you during the first year, you're going to get a one-time scholarship of $2,000. The price of the program is $2,100, right? And that's paid in installments. If you end up at PACE, you're going to get a one-time check for $2,000. If you go up to Albany, I think you get $2,100 back from Albany, and Toro's $2,100. But it's the same basic model: is take the program, complete the program, go to the law school, and if you attend, then you'll get the money back for a scholarship back. Yes, I'm sorry.
How many diagnostics are administered in the course, and what are the materials that are given?
I'm sorry, I'm trying trouble hearing you.
How many diagnostics are administered in the course, and what materials are given?
The way the program is structured is the first 5 weeks is getting down IRAC. It's all discussion. It's granular, and then there's a gradual move into testing. So we go from discussion of IRAC to you'll take exercises that are timed to see where we are. We'll do that for about 3 to 4 weeks, and then following that we go into, like tomorrow I'll be at Toro Law School, and they will be taking exam 81 under timed conditions, 5 sections. So there will be 3 full tests that are administered at the end of the cycle.
As far as homework, do you get homework or no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry, the materials are the actual LSATs. And for whatever it's worth, if you have any proprietary material, burn it. If you have anything that says logic games, give it to somebody you don't like. Well, there's no section on the test called logic games. So why is it become, again, it's just, let me give you tricks and shortcuts. If the section is called analytical reasoning and you want to be an attorney, what would you call the section? So where's Aristotle? I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, what's with that? And what logical reasoning tests your lawyering skills. You have to weaken arguments, strengthen arguments, draw conclusions, identify assumptions, identify flaws, and identify principles. I've been doing that for 30 years. So I get paid to do. Reading comp is measuring your academic infrastructure, because when you get in here, you can't fake it. If you cannot read Justice Kennedy's opinion in the same-sex marriage case or understand it, then you're not going to succeed. Analytical reasoning is, can you organize, manage, and solve in a deductive universe? And in law school, you must organize, manage, and solve. So the test, and not for nothing, the correlative value of the test is 0.41, meaning eventually you get a first-year law school class rank. That first-year law school class rank is compared to your LSAT score. 0 is no value, 1 is a perfect value. The LSAT bears a predictive value of 0.41. That's a 3.5-hour test. Your GPA has a predictive value of 0.27. So you spend 4 years, right? And the predictive value of the GPA is 0.27. You spend 3.5 hours, and this result, the predictive value is almost 50% greater. It's a really interesting test. Was there any questions? Yeah.
You said the LSAT measures how you think about what you know.
Correct.
How exactly do they measure how you think and like in what ways?
You have to come back to that. That's this. In other words, they measure how you think by stripping the test of any content. There is no content. So if I say to you, just to see how this works, this is exam 63. So it's an actual LSAT. In terms of measuring how you think, if I were to look, let me just get my book here. If the goal of taking this test is to see the answer before you ever look at the answer choices. Pretend the answer choices aren't there, right? Just pretend there are no answer choices. What does your mind produce? And if your mind produces something that bears no relationship to the credited answer choice, then you've screwed this up, right? If your mind produces something that puts you in the neighborhood of the answer choice, then you're doing this correctly. And just for an example, you take a look there at, doesn't matter, we look at question number, what's up there? Let's go to question number 2. We got Jocko. Is Jocko up there? Oh, I'm looking, I'm looking at the, hang on, I got the wrong page here. So, yeah, let's look at question number 2. Now, just as a side, the other thing you have in there is the level of difficulty. The level of difficulty is assigned by the Law School Admissions Council. So when you look at this sheet, one of the attributes of a psychometric test is in the verbal section, I hate to use the word easier, but for lack of a better term, the easier questions in a verbal section tend to be up front. The more difficult ones tend to be in back. And that's true of all psychometric tests, right? So when you look at this, which is in your folder, here, these are exams that the LSAC, they released this information, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 exams there that are released. If you look at questions number 1 through 9, you see the 1 through 9 are at the top, right? If you follow those columns down, is it fair to say you see a lot of blank spaces? Okay, but if you look at questions, say, 17 through 26, is it fair to say you see very few blank spaces?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the blank spaces are level of difficulty 1, 2, or 3. The vast majority being level of difficulty 1, which means about 63% of people are getting it right. Level 2 basically means about 57% are getting it right. Level 5, on the other hand, means about 37% of getting it right, and level 4 means about 44% of getting it right. So This is data that's released by the LSAC, and it seems to me the clear meaning of that data is that logical reasoning is backloaded. And it is backloaded, meaning you're going to get 1 point for no matter how easy or no matter how difficult the question is. So, if you just look at this, again, the way you would use IRAC to approach this, IRAC starts with the issue. Logical reasoning presents an issue in the form of a question. In other words, the issue is always right below the argument. So the issue here is the reasoning in the artist argument is flawed, right? That's what you read first. You do not read the law first. The law is the argument. You don't read that first. You read the issue first, because the issue dictates how you read the law. So if the issue is what you're about to read is flawed, you're going to, about 8 to 10% of your test will be identifying a flaw. Doesn't that mean the writer had to embed a flaw? Doesn't that mean the writer had to, in advance, embed a flaw in there?
Yes.
Okay, well, your job is to recognize what the flaw is. So if I read this and say, okay, now I know I'm reading for a flaw. And I read this and it says, so don't look at the answer choices. Let your mind do the work. And it says here, and again, you would have slash marks wherever there's punctuation. You're going to read textually. You're going to put slash marks wherever there are periods, wherever there are colons, and wherever there are semicolons, because you're now reading textually. If I put a period down and you don't understand what's to the left of that period, would you agree with me you're in trouble? Okay, where's Aristotle? You change the way you read. You say, oh, you mean the writer is using punctuation as a tool? You bet I am. If I want to increase the difficulty, might I increase the difficulty if I use less punctuation and more words? Yeah, you bet I would. Might I decrease the difficulty if I give you 7 words in a period, 7 words in a period, 7 words in a period?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm still looking for Aristotle. This is not a test on formal logic. This is just not. So here, say, okay, so this is an artist, so I have a noun, right? So they could have said, it's not a commercial contractor, it's an artist. What does the artist say? Almost everyone in this country really wants to be an artist, even though they may have to work other jobs to pay the rent. Stop. There's a period there. What role in the argument is that likely to play? Is that a conclusion? Is that a premise? What is that? Conclusion, you bet. And that's what you're reading for. Because if it's the conclusion, doesn't it follow that the rest of this argument has to bring support to it? Talk to me.
Yes.
But if you're reading and you don't realize you just read the conclusion, you got a problem. Now, I'm not saying you wouldn't read, you might read the whole thing, because something can be a conclusion and end up being a subordinate conclusion. They can develop, right? But do you get that, again, this is not complicated. Think of the conclusion as the top of the Acropolis. It's the top. And the evidence are the weight-bearing columns. Okay, so does everybody get this? This conclusion is that almost everybody in the country really wants to be an artist, right? So if you're going to support that conclusion, don't you have to give me evidence about almost everybody in the country? Talk to me.
Yes.
Okay, so where's Aristotle? It's like, okay, this person's out on a limb, right? Let's see what evidence I got. After all, just about everyone I know, so the evidence is about who the artist knows personally, yes? Just about everyone I know hopes to someday be able to make a living as a painter, musician, or poet, even if they currently work as dishwashers or discount store clerks. Would you agree with me that is scant evidence to support a conclusion about everybody in the country?
Yes.
And you stop, and you don't look at the answer choice, and you say, how can I articulate, the writer wrote that, right? The writer is doing precisely what I'm doing right now. The writer has embedded the flaw, and now is requiring you to articulate the flaw. Anybody want to take a shot without looking? What's the flaw? Yeah.
They're basing a large conclusion off of a small sample base.
Well, yes, it's small, and what else is it? Small is underrepresented. What else is it?
I'll say it's also skewed, because it's only people that he knows.
Skewed, yes.
Bias.
I'm sorry? Oh.
It's an opinion. It's anecdotal.
It's absolutely anecdotal, but you know, interesting. That word I'm not aware I've ever seen the word anecdotal in an LSAT answer choice. But you're right, you're absolutely right, yeah. What we have is, could you say that this person is too small a sample, that the number of people this person knows cannot take you to everybody in the country? Talk to me.
Yeah.
But haven't we also identified this person's occupation? And couldn't you then say that it's not only is it underrepresented, it's unrepresentative, because artists are not representative of lawyers, artists are not representative of contractors, artists are not representative of bus drivers. Yes?
Correct.
But we're done, we have the answer. The writer wrote that, and this is how the writer would start. The writer starts with a principle, just like law school. So the principle is either underrepresented sample or an unrepresentative sample. You can't get both in the answer choices because you'd have 2 credited answers. So now look at the 5 choices and see if one of the 5,
D.
can you identify? And what did you come up with?
D.
D for Drusus? Doesn't it appear that we have done what the writer did? Talk to me.
Yeah.
That's how you take this test. That's how you take this test. You take this test acquiring the mind of the writer. It's not going to happen overnight. It's exactly what's going to happen in law school. I could go on forever, and I'm not.
Is this application available online? Is this?
No, because you'd be doing that through the Focus Approach website. I'll tell you what. Let me hand this out. This is just if you want me to send you an email, right? Just fill this out. And just yeah. Well, just like pass it around and let me. Let's while we're doing it, let's just try one more. And again, how powerful would it be if you could? Yeah, Anthony.
For the writing portion for the upcoming class, has there been a date set for like when he's doing that?
Anthony will set that when he comes in. 2 weeks from today is the first class. Okay. Anthony will be there, and Anthony will set the dates for when he's going to do the legal writing.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
You missed the first class, which was in the following week. What are you missing?
Well, everything. Well, if you missed the very first class?
Yeah, well, you said you're coming first and second class in Sydney. But if you miss it, come to second. What are you missing in the first class?
Well, what you're missing in the first class will be on video. So what you'd be missing in the first class is where I'm trying to get this nailed down, is exactly what does it mean when you say the test measures how you think. So the first class is very granular. It's very much setting the foundation for this going forward. Having said that, every class is on video and is available.
Is it Saturday and Sunday or just Saturday?
No, it's every Saturday. That first section will be every Saturday from November 17th through the 3rd week in January. I think it's January 22nd. And every class is from 9 to 2. And the purpose of that is the test is, if you get used to 5-hour increments, you're going to be ready for the test. Yeah. Any other questions on that? So, yes, Rachel.
Meeting the, whatever that Thanksgiving weekend is, the 24th?
Yes, bring turkey. Bring turkey sandwiches, yeah.
Post turkey.
Post turkey.
Right after.
As long as it's not turned.
No.
And again, while that paper goes around, I'll just do one more of these. But again, the goal is, as you sit there now after a very long day, can you see the answer in your mind's eye? So if we look at, let me give you a, try, let's do a level 5. Want to see a level 5? This is a level 5, meaning when this was administered, well over 60% of all test takers got this wrong, right? Let's see if we can understand why. So this is question number 8 that we want to do, right? So when this was written, it was written to produce failure, all right? And we say, okay, first, what's the issue? The issue here is which one of the following is true most helps to resolve the apparent discrepancy. Would it be fair to say you need to understand what an apparent discrepancy is in order to get this correct?
Yes.
Okay. So an apparent discrepancy means there is no discrepancy. It's a paradox, right?
So it's a parrot?
I'm sorry? It's a paradox. There is no discrepancy. The word apparent is telling you there is no discrepancy. Right. So now I know I'm reading for something, and an example of this in real life would be, I have a client, and say I have Father Mulcahy as my client. And Father Mulcahy comes in and he says, the cop gave me a ticket for running a red light and I didn't do it. And say, I know Father Mulcahy and I know he's not lying. But I know the cop and I know the cop's not lying. And so I talked to Scott. Scott's a cop. Scott says, I wrote him a Peter, I'm sitting at the intersection. I was outside of Pace Law School. I'm looking at the light and it's green. This car goes perpendicular to me, right through the light. What would you do? And I said, I'd write him a ticket. Because if your light is green and he's coming perpendicular to you, his light should be red. But I believe Father Mulcahy too. Right? That's a paradox. How can they both be telling the truth? Anybody? Bingo, bingo. You call for the maintenance logs of the city of White Plains, you say, let's take a look at this light. And in that event, you would resolve a paradox. So that's what a paradox is, right? So that's where the writer is starting from. Can you solve that type of thing? Because as a lawyer, you're going to be presented with that type of thing. Here's the law. I have a slash mark after the word region, slash mark after the word homes. That's where my punctuation is. Now I read, but I'm reading for the evidence and the conclusion. And that sign-up sheet still going around? Okay, cool. All right, here goes. Now we have an energy analyst. And during this record-breaking heat wave, air conditioner use has overloaded the region's electrical power grid, resulting in frequent power blackouts throughout the region's stop. Does that sound like a premise or a conclusion? Does that sound like a fact or a conclusion?
A premise.
Yeah, a fact. It sounds like fact to me. I'm going to let it develop, but doesn't it sound like you're being told? Now, if it's a fact, what's responsible for overloading the power grid? If it's a fact, right? What is responsible for overloading the power grid? Air conditioner use. You're reading textually, and now we're in the law. You with me? Say, okay. Next sentence. For this reason, residents have been asked to cut back voluntarily on air conditioner use in their homes. Stop. That slash mark tells you stop. Okay. What's responsible for overloading the grid?
Air conditioning use.
Okay, right, you say air conditioner use. Now, what's the remedy that is being employed? Where are we cutting back on air conditioner use?
In the homes.
In homes, yes?
Yeah.
In homes, okay. But the problem is in the region, right? Hasn't it overloaded the grid in the region? Talk to me.
Yes.
Oh.
Throughout the region.
Well, do you think a region might contain things in addition to homes?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Final sentence. But even if this request is heeded, blackouts will probably occur unless the heat wave recedes, abates. Would it be fair to say that final sentence is the conclusion?
Yes.
Right? So the conclusion is, that second sentence, right? We did it. The residents cut back in their what? In their homes, right?
Yes.
But we still had blackouts in the region.
So other people are still using air conditioning.
So if you're resolving that paradox, what might you not have taken into account?
People other than residents.
Right, well, you can go a number of ways at this, but you get your mind is, you notice our mind is producing similar outcomes. They're not the exact words, we don't care about the exact words. But wouldn't you say, maybe air conditioning uses in the home was not sufficient, that there were other possible, explanations for this that didn't have anything to do with homes. Yes? Okay, now, and remember, this is level 5, right? So that they're definitely designing this for failure. How about it? Just read, thank you. What do you got? Anybody, just read all 5, and then we'll have a conversation, and then you can get the hell out of here.
So what is it that you're doing? The answer?
Well, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. All right? Does anybody like A? Choice A. It's fine to get, put your hand up. B, anybody like B? Okay, there are a lot of B's. How about C? C? D? E? Now you're just weasels. Well, every hand that went up, of the hands that did go up, which were quite a few, does everybody agree every hand went up on letter B? That was the level 5, and that was the answer.
But is it level 5 because A and B are so similar?
Yes.
Or because the questions are?
Well,
Because
no.
they give you 2 answers.
Here's the
Two
deal. I mean,
answers that really fit.
do you see that the law is written with precision? The law is the argument, right? Do you get that the law is written with precision? It's not formal logic. It's not Aristotelian. It's the first sentence refers to a region and air conditioning being responsible, right? The second sentence now morphs off and talks about homes, which is not, home is not region. There's a discrepancy, right?
So A is wrong because it says area.
Well,
Is that a region?
Well, A says air conditioning is not the only significant drain, but do we care if it's the only significant drain? What have we been told in the law is responsible for the failure? In that first sentence, we are told air conditioner use has overloaded, right? So A is not really relevant because we've already been told air conditioner use overloaded the system. You getting? This is the whole ball of wax. If you start with the issue, right? You read the law textually, you're performing the analysis in your mind. You're not, the process of elimination, the only thing a process of elimination is going to eliminate you from is law school contention. Because you're going to run out of what? Time. But when your mind can say, I've got the issue with precision, I've read the law textually, I performed the analysis as I've read that law, and my mind has produced a conclusion, you're going to be a lawyer. It's that bloody simple. God is my witness. There was a question over here?
It's just, what can you do to the stimulus to convert A to a correct answer?
Why would you want to?
You want to convert A to a correct answer?
Right, so how would the stimulus have to change?
Well, A is not relevant. I mean, so I'm not quite sure how to answer that because A is saying it's not relevant whether air conditioning is not the only significant drain on the system because we've been told that air conditioning is responsible for the overloading of the system.
So what I'm just suggesting that if that first sentence was changed to air conditioning use has contributed to the region's electrical power grid failure, then that would change the story.
It wouldn't be there because it might present 2 credited answer choices. Correct, yeah.
The other,
Yes.
the other issue is that the question asks which most helps to resolve the parent discrepancy. So A could hypothetically be correct in a kind of way, but B is just, justifies the issue even further, that would be the answer.
Yeah. I think B is dispositive. I think, I think A is not the answer, and I'm sure A is not the answer. Because you've been told as a fact, air conditioning overloaded that system. So whether there's some other contributory cause doesn't matter because you're told air conditioning is the cause. Yeah. So, it's wind up time. Please.
I have a question not related to this. If we wanted to register for this class, how do we register?
Well, from my website is focusapproach.com. So if you register, if you go to the Pace Law website, it'll send you to focusapproach.com. If you go to the Pace Law website and you type in pipeline, it'll send you to this, right? Yeah, but if you go to focusapproach.com, and so long as your name is on that email list, you're going to get an email from me no later than Monday, probably tomorrow, but you'll get an email. And the purpose of the email from me is to invite you all to come in. Come in and see the class and be there as my guest. And if it's not a fit, for heaven's sakes, don't do it. Right? And if it is a fit, I suspect I suspect the manner, I'm quite certain, the manner in which you read, write, and think will change. So, Ben, on behalf of Pace Law School, thank you for being here. I hope today was productive. And thank you for putting up with me.
Thank you.
And I'll hang around, so don't.
So, you're looking at what's about 7 weeks?